Welcome to Houston Sports Talk with your host, Robert Land.
Hey, thanks for checking into the best Houston sports podcast. A little bit of a false start at the beginning, but welcome to our live Texans-Dolphins postgame show. We're part of the Bleav network. Joining me as contributor, Tom Chavarria, co-host of the Bullpen podcast. And Tom, boy, this was a typical Texans game. Comes down to the final last couple of minutes, but it's a big one. You know, this is one they had to get. This is a must. I called this a must-win game earlier this week.
If you feel that the Texans were going to have the Colts run them down and run the table, yes, they absolutely needed to get this done to really make it very difficult for the Colts to catch them. Like you spoke to, typical Texans fashion. But quick funny story. You know, my dad, diehard Texan fans, why I'm a fan today. You know, all last season, his motto was just keep it close into the fourth quarter, and then the Texans would have a chance. We started out this season hyped up for, you know, all of the different guys that we've gotten, things like that. It's like, oh no, we're gonna blow them out early and cruise this year. And all they've done is keep it close to the fourth quarter and stress everyone out. So that's where we are.
Boy, some storylines in this one, Tom. I mean, we're going to talk a little bit about the fact that they have moved Titus over to left guard, Blake Fisher to right tackle with Juice Scruggs injury. You've got some injuries that they had to battle through in this game. The Texans offense is a constant back and forth tug of war of like, what's wrong? Who's to blame this time? We're going to try to get to all of that. Was there anything in particular from CJ Stroud that you saw today? Did you see anything good, bad, or does it feel like it's kind of more of the same?
I'm really starting to worry about CJ Stroud's confidence to deliver the football. I really think there were some times where, and I've said this a lot this season, and I really feel like this is a maturity thing, right? These are all growing pains that come with, you know, having the bullseye on your back. And I think he's learning that. You just don't see him having the joy and the fun that you had in seasons past. You see him trying to be very, very fine with some of his stuff. You see him, I think, hold on to the football a little bit long to make sure he's either hitting the home run or making sure he's getting plays in there. And again, I'm at no point am I saying that has me out on CJ or anything like that. I think a lot of people just need to take a step back and realize this is year 2 for this young man. I think the sky is still the limit for him. And, you know, I don't call it a slump because I don't think he's slumping. It's just there's a little growing pain regression that we're seeing. And today was no different. There was definitely plays in this game that I'm sure that we'll get to that, you know, plays he could have made, things that he could have made easier that he might have made a little difficult. And, you know, I think he'll go back to look at the tape and definitely learn from it.
Yeah, a couple big screw ups, but, you know, he also made some fantastic plays, and, you know, he made plays that only CJ can make. Christopher says, great W, Texans, not perfect, but nice job. Can't agree with you more. Not perfect, but boy, there was one part of this team that was really practically perfect today. And we're going to talk about them. And Brandon might hint at that part of the team. Great win defense. Now we just got to get some offense for next year, hire somebody for next year. If you want to comment, let us hear from you, because we want to hear questions, comments, whatever you got as this one moves along. We go through these games possession by possession every week. And let's get into this one. The Texans D, first possession, shuts the Dolphins after one early first down, and on Stroud's first chance, 3 quick first downs on catches by Mixon and Woods, and then the Tank Dell end around. But then Stroud makes a low percentage throw, I thought, Tom, on 3rd and 1. Mixon can't stay in bounds. Same old Texans kind of stalling in field goal range. And I'm just not a fan of Stroud in a shotgun with no Mixon in the backfield as a threat on this type of down, unless you're actually going to go for it on 4th down.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I was really surprised in the play calling or the thought process. I really feel like Joe Mixon was running the ball well enough to be able to get you 1 yard if you needed it. And if you weren't going to go for it on 4th down, I absolutely thought on 3rd and 1, you should have handed the ball to Joe Mixon. And then if you don't get it, okay, we'll kick the field goal. The fact that they threw it kind of let me think that, okay, I've got 2 downs to get 1 yard. The defense showed that they looked fresh. I think a lot of what we saw today from some of the different position groups was the fact that they had their first week off in literally a season of football. When you think about how long they had to go, one of the latest bye weeks, so many different scheduling things that I think hurt the Texans. They looked fresh out of the gate, minus, again, the play calling gaffe, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm going to have some more angles on their short yardage play calling later, because there's another one that I was not terrifically happy about. But the Texans D comes back, another quick 3 and out. The Texans offense, though, can't take advantage. Stroud sacked on 3rd down. Tom, when the Dolphins overloaded the left side, I just thought that was one where, basically Titus and Ogunbowale, they get lost on a Dolphin stunt. They didn't block either guy. That's what I saw. What did you see on that one?
I think that's more on the center for me personally. I think while Titus definitely is a right tackle and he is trying to fill in at left guard, I think he did an admirable job. It's just, there's going to be plays where it's probably uncomfortable to him trying to slide from one direction to the other. I'm assuming he's having to slide to his right a little bit, where in the past he's always sliding to his left. So I imagine that's got to, be foreign to him a little. But I think that's where the help's got to be in the middle. I think if Patterson's going to move one way or the other, it's got to be that way. And that's CJ's blind side. Let's protect that and let whatever traffic's going to come to him from his face. And the way I can't remember the guy's name, but the way he got to the quarterback, it was in a hurry.
I don't say this lightly. I just don't like let's fire the guy immediately. But I've watched Strausser with this offensive line now for an entire year, and guys miscommunicating. It doesn't matter which guy is playing, where they're playing at. This is the same issue over and over again, Tom. I just, you got to move on from this guy. I just, how many times are we going to see miscommunications by the offensive line before you go, maybe the offensive line coach doesn't understand how to get this point across to his guys, or doesn't understand how to teach these guys how to do this?
The one thing I'll say that kind of would defend him a little bit is the line is making the calls, right? So I think a lot of that comes from your center. And if your center's making the calls and he's a younger guy, that's probably got to be really hard for him, especially because he wasn't playing center early in the season. So I think there's growing there that I think the Texans brass would probably say that's something we're having to deal with. I really think they got to go out and get a center. If they're not going to give CJ the protections, if they're going to let that guy call it, then they need a veteran presence there to be able to organize guys, kind of a head coach of the offensive line.
I get what you're saying. I'm just like, okay, Scruggs is young, Patterson's young, whatever. But Patterson's been a center for 4 years at Notre Dame. He was a center for 7 years last year. The offensive line issues are well beyond what the centers are doing as far as miscommunications. There's guard tackle stuff. I don't know if Patterson can read minds when a guy that, at guard tackle decides to do a stunt. You have no idea that that's going to come. You can't read Patterson or Juice Scruggs. They're not supposed to read those guys' minds. This is about offensive linemen being able to communicate with each other, not just Patterson communicating with them. Tom, it's like they have to communicate with each other. And, Tunsil's been in the league a long time. Shaq Mason's been in the league a long time. Titus is not a rookie. These are guys that have been around for a while. And this is just consistent across the board for the Texans all year. I'm sorry, Tom. I'm out of excuses for Chris Strausser at this point. I'm done. It's over with. It's history for me. You want to keep Strausser? He's all yours. He's got no history, by the way. No history of being this incredible guru offensive line coach. So why not try somebody else there?
Oh, I don't doubt that at all. And he's not my guy. If they move on from him, I'm not going to feel like, man, they let a good one get away. I think the offensive line should have performed better at some point. And it's just, this is the same thing over and over again. The Dolphins are a team that are the worst in the league in generating sacks. And they had sacks today. And I'm just sitting there scratching my head going, what does this team need to do to just not allow people free rush at their quarterback. And you can just see it on CJ's face after each one of these sacks. It's wearing him out.
Yeah, we have Mello saying we have no talent at guard. I mean, yeah, they could be better at guard for sure. We know the problems at left guard. But Titus is not somebody that can't handle blocking people. I mean, that's what he's done for his entire career with the Texans. He's done a pretty good job at blocking people in the pass game. I know people tend to hate on Titus, but really, he's not bad. I mean, I don't think Caserio is an idiot because he thought Titus is the guy that you could go with moving forward at right tackle. And of course, he's had to play left guard because of the injuries. But, Titus should be able to prevent sacks and block guys. But anyway, that's a whole other story. Dolphins drive into Texans territory. The Texans D helped by a Dolphins holding penalty, though. Miami has to kick the field goal to tie it up. First play of the next Texans possession, Mixon goes down on another hip drop tackle, but luckily not major this time. He's back in the game. I don't know if he was ever the same, though. Texans go 3 and out for the second straight possession, but Will Anderson, huge play, knocks the ball out of Tua's hands. Tim Settle recovers, and Tom, that sets up the Nico touchdown catch with really good pass blocking, I thought. Stroud had all day on that throw.
Absolutely. And I think Stroud did a really good job stepping up into the pocket, creating difficult situations for the linebackers and for some of the secondary that kind of helped, I think, open up that throw to Nico in the back of the end zone. I can't say enough great things about this defense. I just think they're Super Bowl caliber. I really think that when you look at them top to bottom, they just have so many great players. Yes, they have players that we pick at and critique because you have to. But I think when you look at what they're able to do, and we'll talk more about it obviously through this game, literally they can go out and beat anybody. They can go out and stop anybody. I think they're that good. They proved it again today, and it'll be interesting to see if this defense keeps traveling because teams in the postseason with great defenses normally do really well.
Yeah, Mello, he's responding to the Shaq deal, and he says Titus has been terrible at guard. Yeah, we know. This is an emergency situation. The Texans are doing the best that they can with the injuries that they've had to both Scruggs and Kenyon, and really Kenyon and what's happened to him has been the big problem at left guard. Sometimes you're not going to be 3 or 4 deep at one position. He says Titus has been one of the worst guards when playing there. Yes, yeah, we get it. Shaq, unathletic and undersized. No, Shaq was a very good right guard for most of his career. We just got him on the decline. That's just the story. I want to get Tom to more on the defense in a little bit later, but the Dolphins get the ball. Big penalties kill the Texans D. Mario Edwards and Eric Murray, personal fouls, put the fish a lot closer to the end zone. 30 yards with the penalties right there, but Miami picks up their own penalty in the red zone, and then you talked about it, the defense, and I knew we were going to circle back to them over and over again. Kalen Bullock, what a play in coverage. Miami settles for a field goal, and then, Tom, that bad miscommunication between Patterson and Stroud on the fumbled snap. And that's something that, we can talk about the offensive line. We don't know who's to blame there, though. That's the thing on some of these plays, and, that's one where, was it Stroud or was it Patterson?
The body language screamed Patterson. The way, they showed him, they panned to him right before they went to commercial break. He looked like he had owned that, at least with the way he was carrying himself. I don't know what CJ could have done differently. He was clearly trying to read, the defense and trying to see where he was going to go with the football. And I don't know that he asked for it. I didn't see that he did anything to ask for it. We like I said, the defense played so well. The 2 penalties I thought were absolutely horrible. And I know I saw a bunch of people on social media go after both of those guys. Mario Edwards barely touches. Now I get it. Helmet to helmet.
It's helmet to helmet. That's going to get called.
I get it. Hold on. I get it. I understand. But when the guy doesn't go to the ground, I mean, they're for me, I think you let those guys play. Tua wasn't over there begging for the call. It wasn't like Tua was like, he hit me. Nah, it was a football play. And then with the other one with Eric Murray, and I'm not up here politicking for Eric Murray, the great player. But when I saw the tackle and I saw where he hit the guy, I just don't know what he's supposed to do when the dude's like twice his size. He he had that much to really work with, an inch higher, and it's probably not called. Either way, I feel like those guys didn't kill them. I thought the defense did a great job picking them up. Kalen Bullock, he's going to be phenomenal. When you think about the secondary with Kamari Lassiter, Kalen Bullock, and Derek Stingley going forward, it's no fly zone. It's just no fly zone. I don't know who you want to try. You're going to have to stay in front like Miami tried to do, because you're trying to go deep. Those guys are going to win more than they lose. And then you turn around and talk about the touchdown, or I'm sorry, you turn around and talk about the offense and their struggles. I really hope that we find out what happened there. Maybe CJ owns it. Maybe Patterson owns it. We'll see. Luckily, it did not end up costing them a football game.
All right, we're going to come back to Kalen Bullock, obviously, very quickly here. But before we finish the first half, quick reminder, if you enjoy Houston Sports Talk, tell your friends and share our links on your social media. Please do that. That'd be super helpful. And if there's a Texans angle you want to discuss, let us know in the YouTube comments. Click the like button to support the show. Give us a quick thumbs up. It helps the old algorithm, as they say. And of course, if you haven't done so, subscribe on YouTube and listen on the go with your favorite podcast app. Back to the action after the Texans fumble. There he is again. Kalen Bullock, second huge play of the game. What an interception, Tom. And that run back just as exceptional.
Absolutely. Kalen Bullock is known for his ball hawking skills. He's literally out there playing center field. And I really think that when they have him out there and they have their other guys playing press coverage, until offenses figure out a way to beat it, I think it's their best coverage look. Kalen Bullock has great ball skills, and he just made a play on the ball. I would have loved to see him punch it in. Obviously, we're going to get into what happens after that. It was a long run back, so I'll give him a little credit. I think you tweeted out something about him stiff arming A-Chain. A-Chain's a big boy now. I would have been more upset if he tried to stiff arm him and A-Chain was able to knock the football away. I'm glad he protected the football. It was just a great play, and it really changed the momentum of the game.
Yeah, just that little Walter Payton stiff arm, and he had the ball in the right. I mean, he had the ball in his left hand, which was good. That's the hand you want to have it in. And if you do the stiff arm and you're near the sideline, they try to punch it out, the ball goes out of bounds typically. So, that was my point. But it's like nitpicking with him is, they didn't get in right there. They have to settle for a field goal. It was a big 6-point swing. The Texans' best offense is their defense, 10 points off turnovers in the first half. Was there anything you would have done different, or how do you think they handled those last couple of plays before kicking the field goal?
I hated it. I absolutely hated it. I thought that whether it be CJ not realizing what he had in the time, or the head coaching not calling, timeouts and such, I just hated it. Like, I thought the plays were not set up to try to score a touchdown. I thought it was like, well, if we get one, great. And for me, I feel like that's a recurring theme with the Texans. They settle. They lean on their defense, and I think that's what DeMeco is okay with because his defense is so strong. But I would love to see him, just once or twice, and maybe this is a Bobby Slowick thing, where like, look, push the gas a little bit. I need you to go isolate friggin' Nico Collins on one side and go one-on-one and throw him a jump ball. Just do it. And if it doesn't work, I understand.
Yeah, I would assume they had something that they were hoping was set up for I mean, they're not going back there trying to gain 2 yards to get closer for a field goal. I think, Stroud was hoping for a touchdown right there. The scary play to me was Stroud throwing to Mechie at the 1 yard line. If you don't, you don't get in, I mean, you're left at the 1 yard line, and it's like now you have to make a decision whether you're going to kick a field goal, go for a touchdown, and give up the easy 3 points. So, I wasn't super thrilled with that particular throw and that attempt. But I think Stroud was he didn't throw it in the end zone because there was nothing there. What they were hoping was going to be there wasn't there, right?
Obviously, but I think at that point, you've got to do something to try to get your best player, your best playmaker, a chance at the football. And the fact that Nico Collins never got a target right there in that red zone kind of bothered me a little bit. The fact that CJ kind of rolled out and he kind of, I don't want to say nonchalantly because he was running, but he kind of burnt like maybe 6 seconds instead of throwing the football away, throwing it out of the back of the end zone. I think Trent Green spoke to it, kind of bothered me a little bit. And I was just like, look, they probably could have had like all 4 shots at this touchdown if they wanted to take it. The fact that the only thing that they got that resembled an opportunity at a touchdown was a throw to John Mechie on the one when you would love to see Mixon get it or Tank or Dalton. I felt like it just didn't feel like they were trying to score a touchdown. And I hate saying that because I know that's what a lot of their fans kind of feel. And I normally understand the game and kind of just, okay, I get it. But this is the one time like, all right, you got the ball, you got the big turnover. You're getting the ball in the start of the second half. Look, I need you to step on their neck a little bit, put it in the end zone. And we didn't do that.
Yeah, I'm like, get the 3. You wouldn't have had the 3 like few seconds earlier. Take the 3. And, if there was something that was there, I'm sure Stroud was looking for that guy. And if you're telling me he wasn't looking for Nico in the end zone, then you haven't met CJ Stroud before. He always looks for Nico. And by the way, there's going to be more of Nico in the end zone as this one rolls on, as we know. So let's move to the second half. Stroud nearly hits Mechie on a huge play, but off Mechie's fingertips. That was frustrating, and you thought, oh, no, here we go again. But Frank Ross dials up something gorgeous on the fake punt. Tell me about that one.
Frank Ross is probably not long for the Houston Texans. He's been a phenomenal special teams coach for like the last 3 years. I truly believe some other team is going to try to poach this man to coach their football team. I don't know when. I hope they don't, because I love what he does to the special teams. This was a great play call, great design, because it really had a little misdirection in it at the perfect time. If you're going to call a fake, I love the way that, they kind of did the little handoff thing, had a blocker. I mean, it was just a really great play call. And the only thing that kind of made it in question at all was the fact that Dare fumbles the football after he lands, and we find out later that he falls down. But I mean, other than that, everything went according to plan. Beautiful time to call it. I love that, it put a playmaker, it got a ball in the playmaker, Dare. We've seen Dare make plays. It wasn't like we were talking about a linebacker with the football or anything like that. I just thought it was a great football play, and it was huge for the Texans to try to not be on the back foot. I thought the third quarter isms were going to come out. All the things that happened with the Texans in the third quarter where they failed to generate offense. This was more of the same. And then this play kind of just turned it around. Lit the stadium up too.
Yeah, Mello disagrees with you. He says Harbaugh was a rarity as a special teams guy that goes into being a head coach. Nobody is going to hire Frank Ross as a head coach. So you and Mello disagree on that one. I also have to mention on that special teams play, Dylan Horton, big block to bust that open. Great to see anything good from Dylan Horton, something that he's doing positive coming back from his cancer and what he's gone through. The Texans cash in on Ogunbowale's game-changing play with the reliable Frico Nico in the end zone. And is there a scarier NFL combination than Stroud and Nico in a scramble drill like they once again did? And it was another touchdown.
Yeah, it was a great play. I mean, when you saw the replay where Nico came from the other side of the football field all the way to the corner in the front pylon, I thought it was really smart on Nico's part. I don't know how much of that was design or just, they've just talked about it, but it was like clearly this was the only option that I think he had where only he could give it to Nico, where he was the only guy that could get it. I thought it was a great play, by CJ to extend and scramble. I normally don't love when he does that because he takes so much punishment. He puts himself in bad situations. Penalties come off of it. But this play worked out great, and it was huge to get that touchdown.
Absolutely. And at this point in the game, 17 of the Texans' 20 points are pretty much thanks to defense and special teams. And we're going to talk about the big picture of that at the end of this. But scary scene coming up. Bullock goes helmet to helmet with wide receiver Grant Dubose. And Tom Dubose, he's a great story if Texans fans don't know. This was a 0-star recruit at a high school. Only offer was a D2 school. He's the rare 7th-round pick who made an NFL roster. We wish Dubose all the best. It's hard for me to get too upset with Kalen Bullock. You talked about it with the Aziz stuff. This stuff happens fast, and it wasn't the greatest lead-in throw by Tua either. He didn't help his receiver out.
No, and honestly, I think what did the most damage was not the hit, but the way his head snapped back after his lower half hit the ground, and then his body like snapped back and his head hit the ground afterwards. I don't necessarily feel like Kalen Bullock had a bad form tackle where he targeted him or, anything like that. Those plays are kind of called bang, bang. You hear quarterbacks all the time talk about, look, I'm not going to throw that because I know I'm putting my guy in harm's way. It's super tough. I hate like these plays because, you look for a villain, and I don't necessarily feel like there was a villain. It's a violent sport. Things like this happen all the time. Jalen Waddle gets hurt, getting rolled up, and you never wish that. He's a Houston guy. He had friends and family in the building. It's just the way it is sometimes, and you hope that he's okay. You hope he comes back, everything works out, and maybe we're not making that throw next time, like you said, and we're not talking about it.
Any way you think Kalen Bullock gets suspended for this?
I hope not. Fine, sure. I mean, he wasn't flagged. I didn't see anything in the.
Oh, he was flagged. He was flagged.
I guess I didn't see it.
Yeah, no, he got a penalty. It was a 15-yard penalty, and they didn't throw him out for targeting, so that's positive as far as the suspension goes. But you just never know, and the Texans now have a reputation, unfortunately.
It'll be interesting if that comes out because clearly this is the first instance of anything like that. So to go straight to a suspension would be a little extreme, but I don't put anything past the league at this point after seeing what they did with disease. And they've got a couple of big games coming up. So Kalen Bullock's going to be a big part of that, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, they need him for sure. Dolphins drive into the red zone, but Lassiter and Christian Harris, two nice open field tackles. But on the field goal attempt, this really drives me nuts. And I'm really tired of this guy at this point. MJ Stewart, his fourth dumb special teams penalty in the last month. Dolphins go for it on 4th and 2. And Tua gets all day to throw on this one. Jonnu Smith finally works open for the touchdown. MJ Stewart, let's get him off the team. I mean, he made some nice special teams tackles, but you just can't have a guy that continues to do this. And as much in love as we talk that we are with Frank Ross, it's been too many of these special teams penalties, and that touchdown doesn't happen without MJ Stewart. It just doesn't. I mean, that's a field goal. That's a 4-point swing. Could have been the difference in the game if something happens later on.
Yeah, I don't know what control Frank Ross has over, playing him, not playing him. If he does, I hope he doesn't play him. Like you said, I really think that this is something that you're starting to see over and over again. And I don't understand where he thought he was going. Obviously, yeah, you hope to block a kick, but it's so rare.
It's a short kick too, it wasn't a long one that you didn't have much of a chance. And look, let that field goal screw it up himself. He wasn't exactly Mr. Automatic, the second extra point that he missed after this touchdown in the last 2 weeks. So it just the stupid stuff. That cannot happen. That cannot happen. And at some point, there's got to be a message set by this Texans franchise. Look, if you do dumb stuff and you continue to get us penalties, you're not going to be on the team anymore. I mean, Steven Sims, thankfully, we're not seeing much of him anymore. Tank Dell back doing punts, which I kind of enjoy that, even though I know you're taking a chance with Tank Dell. But, Tank Dell is such a talent back there. And Steven Sims was just such a mistake guy, and you just can't afford that. And special teams is one mistake on special teams. You're only on the field so many times a game, Tom. This is like, we're talking about a small sliver of the game, like 5% of the game is special teams. When you make a mistake on special teams and make the special teams look bad, it's huge. It changes everything.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, you obviously you need those guys to be perfect, and that's not fair because the same thing could be said for an offense or defensive lineman who's got an offsides once a week, like Laramie Tunsil, but we need him. He's very good. Now I'm not advocating for MJ Stewart. I'm just saying I understand why they probably play those guys going, well, look, he had one play and he got a penalty. Now, hopefully they coach that up. Hopefully we're not calling MJ Stewart's name again.
Well, this is the 4th time in 3 weeks. I'm done. I'm seriously, I'm done with it. I'm done with it. You can find a guy somewhere that can do what MJ Stewart does. This is not Laramie Tunsil at left tackle. This is a special teams guy, and we're not going to die if MJ Stewart can't play the Texans will. My heart will go on. The Texans will go on without MJ Stewart. So let's get back to CJ and the offense. It's 3-and-out when Stroud takes this one was a coverage sack. It's all coverage on 3rd and 2. Tom, the thing that bothers me, we talked about the short yardage earlier in the game. The thing that bothers me the most with the Texans in short yardage, should it be this hard to get Tank or Nico open on short yardage plays, like a quick hitting slant? I mean, a quick hit, it's long developing plays on 3rd down. Why do we see these quick hitters instead of the other? Where is Stroud and Slowick with the quick hitting plays right here? I don't know who's to blame, but why not? That was Tom Brady's bread and butter. Nick Caserio comes from that whole system.
Do you want to know where CJ Stroud should have went with that football? The quick hitter you're referring to was standing 3 yards in front of him. His name is Joe Mixon. Maybe you heard of him. And all he had to do was dump it off to him. He looked at him, paused, and then ran. He's got to throw that ball to Joe Mixon. For me, this is CJ Stroud holding on to the football. So Joe Mixon's right there. If he dumps that off, it's probably a first down. I see these plays weekly where he's got a tight end or he's got a running back standing 2 yards on the other side, and he could get 4 or 5 yards, but he's after the 10 or 15-yard play. These are things that we will experience with CJ until he just is okay with not having these monster plays every down. He has to be willing to take these checkdowns, and that was the one to continue that drive, and he didn't take it.
It's 4 sacks on the game for CJ, and I will say that 2 of those are 100% on CJ Stroud. 100%. Like, just don't take sacks. Don't take sacks, not just because you lose yardage. I mean, he might look at it as, we weren't going to get the first down if I didn't take the sack, so it doesn't matter. But don't take sacks because you don't want to get hit. You're CJ Stroud. You're the number 1 guy on the team. You cannot take getting hit just because you can't find a guy like in the first 2 seconds. Sometimes you just got to go, I've got to get rid of the football. And, he's got to get better at that. No question. Dolphins put together another drive on 4th and 4. Tua has all day to throw. Dolphins convert. A little disappointed, I should say, that Hunter and Anderson weren't putting any sort of pressure at that point. But Stingley to the rescue. The first of 2, Stingley to the rescue. Stingley is the lifeguard. He's my Baywatch lifeguard of the game for this one on what I would call a bad decision by Tua. You can't really blame that one on the Texans' pressure, Tom. And Tua hadn't given up an interception at that point in the previous 4 games.
I really feel like Tua was not aware of Derek Stingley Jr.'s game. He had one-on-one with Tyreek Hill, and I think he thought, hey, my guy can win these routes. And Derek Stingley's just such a monster, and he's so cerebral with where he is and what he's looking for. Trent Green tried so often to make the double move a thing. And there was 2 different times in the broadcast where he was like, oh, well, if they run a double move, they'll beat him. And both times Derek Stingley made the same play, and he's in the route. He's literally right there where he needs to be. And I think that's just because he's so smart. And I love it that he's a Houston Texan, and they need to go ahead and pay this man and lock him up because he doesn't need to play for anyone else.
You're not getting any argument from anybody that I know. Once again, the Texans offense, they can't move the ball. Stroud, no time on 3rd and 7 on a blitz. 188 total yards for the Texans offense with 4 minutes left in the game at this point. So it's up to the Texans defense to step up. Danielle Hunter sacks Tua at the 7. They do their job. And then on a key 3rd and 7, Tom, Stroud, oh my goodness. This one was the worst the offensive line looked. Fisher, who I thought had a pretty darn good game. He had a holding call. It's hard for me to get too upset about the holding call that he had because it was real hard for me to see what all was going on in that mix. The replay just didn't show it to me. But this one, he just flat out gets beat badly for the first time all day. Jared Patterson, his guy is knocked into Titus off of his defender. So that was a little weird. It wasn't the usual miscommunication that we see, but that leaves 2 guys coming straight at CJ Stroud. And really Fisher was the big mistake right there. And I'd say, Tom, he had no chance on what was a 4-man rush going against 6 blockers because Ogunbowale was in on that one too.
Yeah, it was a tough play. But to get back to that Danielle Hunter play, the spin move that he made on that right tackle was just absolutely gorgeous. We don't talk about it enough about Danielle Hunter. He leads the league in pressures. I know his sack numbers are good, but not great. And people are like, well, he's paid like a great edge rusher. I just love what he does. I love that he goes about his business really quiet. You don't really hear him too much. You don't really see him too much, like barking, that kind of thing. And he's just a monster. And then on the other play that you spoke to, it's something that I really feel like there are times where Bobby Slowick gets this in his head. Well, oh, my line's good. And he calls some plays. And I wish that the clock's got to be faster. We can't have these long plays, especially when they need to heat up the quarterback and they get home and CJ just looks like, so frustrated. And I hate it for him because you remember last year, he just played with so much joy. His body language was just so different. He was so like committed to every play in a positive way. And now I just see him sometimes after plays, just looks like, man, I am having a long day at work. And I never want that for him.
I also want to point out, so we had 6 guys back in that one, but actually we had 7 because Schultz was slow releasing on that. And my thing is, Tom, why are we having Dalton Schultz block on big plays when you need a catch and you need somebody to be the outlet? Forget Dalton Schultz even taking an extra half a second to block or chip somebody, especially on Laramie Tunsil. I am not worried about Laramie Tunsil's side. That's where he was. That was Laramie Tunsil's side. If you're going to block or chip somebody, if that's what you're worried about, the rookie Blake Fisher, because what we saw the previous possession. But I'm like, I don't get it. I don't understand what was going on with that particular deal. And of course, yeah, they could have used Blake Fisher, or not, I should say the previous possession, Blake Fisher, that possession or that play, was a big deal. So it's just stuff like that where I don't get it. And I don't understand what Slowick is doing with Dalton Schultz much of it. I just feel like a broken. I don't know what to tell you, Tom. It's like, I know you agree with me. It's like we're a broken record on the Dalton Schultz trying to block somebody. I don't get it.
I wish they'd play more Irv Smith. I think Irv Smith, we need to see him. I know that they don't have a whole lot of tight end depth, and Irv Smith recently got promoted. So let's see what he's got. At least in that aspect, right? If you're going to use him to chip or something like that. Dalton took a shot early in the game too. He had a stinger, so I was kind of worried that Dalton wasn't going to come back into the game. So in a play like that where you need him to be able to block, maybe he's not the guy who's already kind of nicked up. There's a lot of guys that were banged up today.
We should mention that Cade Stover out of the game because he had an emergency appendectomy yesterday, where they said appendicitis. I assume that was, they took out the appendix. So if that's the case, I've had that just a few years ago. If you get your appendix out, you're out for at least 3 weeks. And I wouldn't want to be an NFL player even after 3 weeks with that soreness in my appendix. So I would guess he's back for the playoffs is the next time we see Cade Stover. That's my guess.
Yeah, and with no TQ, they really got to get Irv up to speed. So it'll be interesting to see what they do if they add another tight end. Today they were really, shorthanded in that aspect, and that's why I think we got more Dalton Schultz than maybe we would have normally. I still love what he does as a pass catcher. I know everybody hates to hear us talk about him as a blocker. I don't think he's a good blocker. I'll never sit here and say he is. But if you pulled him out every time you weren't going to throw the football to him, it would be a tell. And it was like, well, if he's coming off the field, that guy's not getting the football. You know what I mean?
Paul says the offensive line's going to get better, just need better coaching. That's on D'Amico. He's too loyal to his mediocre coaching staff. Paul, you're taking a shot at Caserio here at the end. I'm like, come on, man. The Texans what's their record right now?
9-5.
What was their record last year?
Not 9-5 at this point.
11-6, I think, was their record last year. They were in the playoffs. This was a joke of a franchise about 3 years ago, and Caserio has drafted a ton of key guys. Like, if you think Caserio is a knucklehead, this guy that was winning championships with the Patriots for 20 years, I don't know if you know about football. I think you're like a casual at this point. Caserio, there's some things that they could have done better as far as building the offensive line. We know that's been a problem, but that's been his one fault. And none of these teams are perfect out there. None of them, Paul. So, like, the fact that they're doing what they're doing the last 2 years with their rookie and a second-year quarterback and a bunch of guys that, we just drafted. I mean, was Caserio the knucklehead? You mean the guy that drafted Kalen Bullock? The knucklehead that drafted Derek Stingley? The knucklehead that drafted Kamari Lassiter? The knucklehead that drafted Will Anderson? The knucklehead that picked up Daniil? I mean, come on. Like, let's be serious about this for a second. Let's finish this one off because speaking of Derek Stingley, let's get there. Tommy Townsend. I wasn't thrilled with the punt. Was a little worried about, like in a big situation, Tommy, we need a big punt. And he only gets it to the 23, but forget all that because Stingley, Superman, the Bionic Man, whatever to the rest. That's one of the best interceptions, Tom, I've ever seen. That's like that is, you might not see a better interception this year, a better individual interception by one guy than what Stingley did.
It was a great play. Let's just get it right out there, get it going right away. To be able to adjust and turn around and basically take the ball away from a smaller guy, because if you really looked at it on the replay, Tyreek Hill made the catch and Derek Stingley just took it away, and he made a great play. And I don't know what else to say other than teams need to stop trying him. Or as a Texan fan, maybe you should. If you think you can beat him, I welcome it. But very soon, I think he's going to get the respect that he should get as a shutdown corner, that he's going to be on your best wide receiver, and you don't want to go there because he's making these plays week in and week out. And it's phenomenal. I know a lot of people were really worried about this guy being a bust a couple of years back when Sauce Gardner was lighting the world on fire. And I preached patience then. And now you're seeing what everybody saw at LSU, what made him so valued at LSU to be drafted as high as he was, even though he was injured often. So Derek Stingley's a monster, and him to be a key piece of that defense, it's Super Bowl caliber.
If the Texans don't give up big plays, Tom, it's not even a question anymore. They have shut down so many good quarterbacks. They're the best defense in the NFL if they don't give up it's the big plays. It's the only thing that's killed them this year, period. I mean, otherwise they've looked fantastic. And, you look at this Texans defense going into the playoffs, and they should be able to compete with anybody, because I don't think there is an offense in the AFC that's equal to the Detroit Lions. It's a juggernaut. I mean, the Chiefs offense, they just haven't been that. They're not that. They're not those guys anymore. I'm not worried about the Ravens. The Texans have already shown that they could bottle up Josh Allen somewhat. So the Texans should be able to compete with anybody.
Yeah, I would say that Ravens team, they went, now they played a bad Giants team, but they lit up the scoreboard today. They've been really good as of late. They've got all the weapons. They didn't even need Derrick Henry today to get 35 points on the board. He had a very subpar day by his standards. So that Ravens team is definitely what I'm circling as a team that I'm concerned with offensively. They have a lot of weapons. Mark Andrews caught a touchdown today. So, but like you spoke to, the Buffalo Bills, they made Josh Allen look very, very, very casual. Not nearly to the level of MVP. The Chiefs, I don't know what magic they have going on there and how they keep doing it. Patrick Mahomes got nicked up today. We'll see what happens there. Carson Wentz had to finish that football game. So it's lining up for a very interesting game in a few days' time. And I'm really excited for this Texans team.
I don't think there's any argument. Texans MVP for this one. Derek Stingley, not a close second. I would say the second guy is Nico with the 2 touchdowns. Stroud was 18 of 26, 131 yards. The 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. The weird fumble on that ball off the helmet, whatever you want to call that, I guess that's credited as a Stroud fumble. But overall, when you look at what the Texans did today on offense, because, we still have to talk about the other side of the football. Not much offensively, but I mean, they got it done. And, if you don't turn the ball over and you kind of sit on this defense somewhat, I mean, I hate to tell everybody, but that's the Texans right now. This is like this is like the old Chicago Bears or New York Giants in the 80s. If anybody remembers that, go back and look at some of those games, because it was a tractor pull.
I look at it more like those Raven teams with Ray Lewis. Was that early 2000s? Their defense was a monster, and the offense, if they gave you 21 points, they were going to beat you more often than not, because you really couldn't do anything. Ed Reed, Ray Lewis, they had some guys that just shut you down, and this Texans defense looks very much like that. It's very tough for teams that don't score to score on them, and it's the good teams that score points struggle too.
Only 4 catches for 17 yards for Nico, but he made the most of it. Xavier picked up a catch in this one, a couple by Mechie, a couple by Dalton Schultz. He avoided what looked like it could have been a terrible injury when you were short on tight end, so it was good. He seemed to be playing okay towards the end of the game. Joe Mixon, 12 carries, 23 yards. Did you want to see Joe with it? I mean, it's all or nothing with Joe, it seems like. And really, once Joe got hurt, did you feel like he looked the same?
Joe Mixon's a warrior, man. I mean, an absolute warrior. The guy probably had no business being on the field, but unlike a guy that plays for the Niners who will not be named, who walked off on their team because, he got demoted and just didn't want to play. Joe was out there for his guys. I don't think he was 100%. I think you spoke to it. I think he was like, my team needs me, even if it's just for appearances. He had a couple of catches that he made that were very important. Joe Mixon played, for me, a phenomenal game, considering, once that hip drop tackle happened, he just, I don't know if it was one wheel, both wheels, but he was definitely limited, in my opinion.
Hunter and Anderson, it's hard to argue with what they did today, because it was between the two of them, 2.5 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, the fumble by Will Anderson. I still want to see some stuff a little bit more consistently throughout the game on pressure. I was surprised at how much time Tua got, especially with 2 new tackles out there. I mean, that's something. After watching this game and watching the Jags game, I'm like, what's going on? Like, these guys should be. I just felt like they should be getting more pressure on Tua and Trevor Lawrence.
I think the what you should see, and why they don't get their name called, is because you're seeing Mario Edwards get home. You're seeing Tim Settle get home. You're seeing our offensive lines kind of like funnel that way, inside out, to help with both of those monsters. And that's why the guys on the interior are having such great success getting home and getting sacks. Even with all the attention, I still see them make plays. We talked about Will Anderson forcing that fumble on the sack, and then obviously the great sack that Danielle Hunter at the end of the game. I don't know if it's just the fact that we expect such greatness because they're great players. I think they're playing really well. We're just looking for 1 or 2 more numbers to go, oh wow, this really set them apart. But I thought they had great games.
Christian Harris, he's back. 8 tackles, 4 solo. What did you see from Christian Harris? There was one play that I just thought he looked a little slow on. There was one early in the game where I think it was the running back. It might have been A-Chain, but no, it wasn't A-Chain. It was one of the other guys. He got out on the edge and picked up about 15 or 20 yards. Christian just didn't get out there quick enough. But overall, what did you think of Christian Harris?
I think first came back, I thought he looked great. I think if you look at guys like Nico Autry when they came back, to get up to game speed, it takes a couple games. You're just not used to everything being as fast. It's never going to be that fast on the practice field, so there's no way to simulate the game speed. I thought he looked great. I cannot wait until we're talking about a 3-headed monster on the linebacking line of Azeez Al-Shire, Christian Harris, and Henry To'oTo'o. Good luck with those guys. I think it's going to be phenomenal. You're getting tackled somewhere. Those guys are tackling machines. So I'm looking forward to that. Christian Harris couldn't come back at a better time, because this is fresh legs to help this defense. And he proved it today. He was everywhere.
Any final thoughts on this game and where the Texans are going to these last 2 games? Because we got Miami and Kansas City, we got Kansas City and the Ravens coming up here. and it's going to happen really, really quick. It's Saturday and Wednesday. Crazy.
I love what the Texans have done. I really do. I know people looked at the schedule before the season started and had differing opinions on where they would be and what their record would be. I think they're exactly where they should be. I think they're going into 2 games with 2 teams that they're looking up at, to try to like get to where they want to go. They got to beat those guys. I think Texans fans should be tempered a little bit. Like, look, they could lose both those games and it would not matter. They'll still be a 4 seed. They'll still be exactly where they would be. They could win both those games and then turn around and you're talking about them in a different light. They're going to be tough games. Those teams are clearly gearing towards trying to lock down seeds. Obviously, Kansas City's done. So maybe they show up with, their B team. Maybe they run through Kansas City. Who knows? I'm just really happy that we're this far in the season. Everything that they wanted to achieve going into the season, it's right there in front of them. Win the division, get that knocked out early. Everything else, we'll see what happens.
If you were hoping that the Texans could clinch the division today, as we sit here, this is live. So if you're listening later on the audio version, you'll know the final score. But the Texans probably won't do it because the Broncos are down 10-0 on the Colts right now in the second quarter. So the Colts jumped out big. I mean, it's not over with, obviously, but it's not looking good for the Texans for a clinch. And but they're 1 game away, basically. They take care of business, win one of the next 3 games, or the Colts lose one of the next, or this one, or one of the other 3, then that pretty much locks the division up. And do they need? Is there like a tiebreaker? If something crazy happens, or is basically they need this one more game, right?
The Texans own the tiebreaker because they beat them twice. So there's no scenario where the Colts, if they tie the Texans, can surpass them. So they would need to finish with a better record. They would need to finish 10-7, and the Texans finish 9-8 for them to win the division.
All right. Before we close, check out Tom on the Bullpen podcast. You guys know where to find him. And of course, it's that Third Coast, Tom, for everybody listening on audio. Super important info for the next 2 post games. Because of some holiday conflicts, we're going to do our live Texans post-game shows the following days. I'm guessing most of you won't even be around on Christmas Day to watch us anyway. You're going to be playing with your new toys. So the Chiefs post-game is going to be Sunday afternoon instead of Saturday, and the Ravens post-game will be Thursday. If you subscribe on YouTube, you're going to get a notification, so you'll know when to tune in to us. So if you can ask, because I would still like to do it live. I want you guys' feedback on these games for sure. Tomorrow, I'm going to have one of our favorite Rockets analysts to talk about the NBA Cup run. And Tuesday, Houston Stressens is back with us. Garrett Williams comes on the show on Tuesday. Can't wait to catch up with him. If you're not stressing, then you're blessing. Houston Stressens, Garrett Williams. But thanks so much, Tom, for doing this. And good to be talking about another W, a couple in a row going into this last stretch of the season. Can't wait to talk to you again next week, Tom.
Let's do it.
All right. Take care, everybody. And looking forward to some great shows this week. Hope you guys will be there.
You're listening to Houston Sports Talk.
Hey, you can support the show by subscribing on YouTube and commenting on the videos. Listen to Houston Sports Talk on Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, and Google. Don't forget to tell a friend and share our show on social media. Spread the word, everybody. Thanks for listening.